Greetings to all our Thai participants for Thai Global 2020. This is the third session that I'm actually hosting on behalf of Thai Lahore, and it's been a wonderful experience so far. The platform works very well. Frames has done a great job. Thai Hyderabad, that is our main host, has done a fantastic job. I know some of them have been up till 2, 3 in the morning coordinating stuff. So we're going to dive right into it, and we're going to talk about uh, investing in Entrepreneurs 4.0. But before we do that, let's set the scene with Yasmin Butt. Yasmin is a laughter therapist, and when I first met her, I was bemused, and I said, "What is laughter therapy?" I had seen it in Munna Bhai, MBBS, where the principal, played by Bhamani, uses laughter therapy, right, to de-stress himself or to deal with the situation. But Yasmin does it in groups. Yasmin does it all over the world. Yasmin has done it for American soldiers in Afghanistan who definitely needed some laughter therapy. She's done it for the offices of Facebook in Germany, in Singapore. They also need a lot of laughter therapy. So Yasmin, all yours. Make us laugh.
Thank you. I was hoping that I could see more people laughing with me, but I think mostly what I would have doing. Oh, sure, that would be great, right? I'd like to see Casey laughing the way I laugh. So I think that'll be interesting because I've never really seen him like laugh.
You need to unmute your mic because we need to see you laughing.
Yeah, I need to hear him laugh as well. And I need to see Omar laughing as well because I've always seen him smile.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
So we've got 5 minutes. Yasmin, we've got 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, that's great. I'm Yasmin Butt, psychologist and laughter therapist. And for the last 3 years, I've been doing laughter therapy across the world. I've taken laughter therapy to 12 different countries, and it's a very simple exercise with a huge impact. Something that we've noticed during all my practice in the last 3 years is I've done it with American soldiers or like people at Facebook or people in China or like Doha, Morocco, UK. In all the countries, something which was very similar. Laughter is contagious and it's very infectious. So when we will start laughing, you'll notice you'll find yourself laughing as well. Okay, so let me demonstrate how we do it. First, I'll demonstrate and then we'll start doing it. And it's an excellent exercise, the best way to reduce your stress. So we laugh on a cue. When I say 1, 2, 3, go, we start laughing. But first, I'll show you how we do it. 1, 2, 3, go. See, so it brings a smile on your face. Now, all 4 of us will do it for you. So, Abhi, to do a simple laughter therapy exercise. Just do a practice laughter with me. No stress, no pressure. Just do it as however it comes to you. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, go.
We've got Khurram laughing.
It's so golden. I've taken a screenshot. I've seen Khurram laughing now. Okay. So some of the exercises we do on the screen gets really, really funny is that come very, very near to the screen and you're going to point out like this in a very naughty way and laugh like
I got two barrels pointed at Khurram.
Khurram looks very cute right now. That's sweet.
Khurram always looks cute.
Yeah, but now more cute, I'd say. Okay, very good. Okay, so our next exercise is very silly. You have to open your mouth like as big as you can, like Okay, and then exactly.
Oh, that is so much fun.
You know, why do I feel like Yasmin is gathering material for blackmailing us down the road?
Yeah, I'm taking so much screenshots actually.
The suspicions of the venture capitalists, they always kick in.
Okay, so our next exercise is even more fun. It's called silent laughter. So now we'll laugh, but we can't produce a voice. So it'll be like, okay, so 1, 2, 3, go.
This is a riot.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Our next exercise is generally men's favorite. So it's called scary laughter. That's what we like to do with our kids. We like to scare them with laughter, right? So we
should
have to
call it the
laugh
KZ
very, very,
special.
very well. Yeah,
You
it
got
should
to
be
name it the KZ special.
Yeah. So let's do a scary laughter on a key of three. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh God, this could go on all day.
My family is here wondering what's going on.
Thoroughly enjoyed this. Thoroughly enjoyed this. Yasmin, stay with us. I think. Hi, Brian. How are you? So let's get on with the subject at hand, right? So we're going to talk about investments. We're going to talk about looking at the world from a different lens, right? Looking at entrepreneurs of a different breed, right? Businesses or startup businesses that have no real tangible assets. Their assets are largely intellectual capital, their own expertise. So they are a very high risk investment class, right? And Khurram, I'm going to start with you because you have oodles of experience in that. You are an active venture capital. You're a GP. You lead the fund. So how do you see entrepreneurs 4.0? You see a lot of kids. You see a lot of now mature people who've given up corporate jobs and decided that they're going to do something different. Or you've seen businesses that have been there traditionally, right? And they've decided that they need to reach out to a larger number of customers, extend their market reach, start to go online or digitize their businesses, digitize processes in their businesses, and then grow from there. So, what is the VC perspective on this new entrepreneur 4.0? The reason why we're calling it 4.0 is also because they use a lot of technology. They're using a lot of technology, cloud computing, edge clouds, IoT, data sciences. The whole works. So how does it work, right? What is the one thing that you're looking at in terms from investment?
Thank you, Faisal, for this opportunity. Really glad to be here, and hello to everyone at TIE. Faisal, I think the biggest thing that Tech 4.0 or Entrepreneur 4.0, whatever you want to call it, enables is the ability to take a business or the ability to solve a problem and do it in a way where you can very rapidly scale and increase the impact of solving that problem in a very short time frame. And that's primarily what Tech 4.0 has enabled, and that's primarily what entrepreneurs are doing, chasing their entrepreneurship 4.0 dreams. From an investor perspective, it obviously makes a lot of sense to back those entrepreneurs and invest, because investors are looking for returns on their investments, and rapid scaling means rapid growth in businesses. Rapid growth in businesses means rapid revenues, and eventually, hopefully, rapid revenues mean rapid profitability and high returns on investments. So we see that as an opportunity. It's a high risk opportunity. It comes with high rewards. So what becomes important in these kind of businesses is the method or process you use to essentially filter out everybody who's claiming to be an entrepreneur out there and identify the ones that you want to invest in and back, the ones who are doing it for the right reasons, the ones who have the right business models, the ones who understand the problems well, ones who have the resources and the network and the wherewithal to be able to build that business and grow it. So that's the tricky part in all of this. And in an ecosystem that's not as rich and dense as perhaps other ecosystems like the Silicon Valley or Israel, for example, this becomes even more important, that you are identifying, you are filtering, and you're narrowing down and honing in on the kind of entrepreneurs that can really build very large businesses and can solve problems at scale. So from an investor's standpoint, it's not just a matter of raising money and investing in companies. It's also the process of due diligence, and more importantly, unlike other more mature ecosystems, in an ecosystem like Pakistan, being able to support the entrepreneurs post-investment also, which is very important. Because at least based on our experience, the entrepreneurs emerging out of a nascent ecosystem, they need a lot of hand-holding, particularly during the formative months and years of their startups. And that becomes very important. So in summary, an amazing opportunity. Pakistan is a big market. It has big problems, and the bigger the problems, the more opportunities to solve those problems and monetize them eventually and create a larger impact. So we here have been investing in the country for the past 4 years, and we made 6 investments now. Most of them doing well. One of our investments got seriously affected by COVID and the lockdown, but others have done really well. In fact, they've thrived in the sort of the post-COVID world. So I'm sure we'll get to talk about that later, but that's just my 2 cents on your question.
Thanks, Khurram. So I'm going to move on to Omar Shah. If you can unmute your mic, Omar. So Omar is both an investor. He's been the youngest VP for a very large private equity fund, which is at one stage about $16 billion. He's made investments around the world. He's evaluated companies all over the world, from Mexico to India. Turkey was one of his favorite hunting grounds. And of course, he was then looking into Pakistan when he was based out of the Middle East. But Umar is also somebody that has a very close connection with Entrepreneurs 4.0. So Umar has founded and created the largest co-working space in Lahore right now. And he's been rapidly growing. So he's on to his second space. In fact, when I spoke to Umar last night, he told me that he's tested positive for COVID-19. And he most likely picked it up from the second site that he was very keen to open up, because there were customers waiting to get in. And most of his customers are what we call Entrepreneurs 4.0. So Collabs is that company. So Umar, tell us, from the perspective of CEO of Collabs, somebody who's got these young coming in, a lot of them have small little companies. They need 1 desk or 3 desks or 4 desks. Some of them want small offices, 6 to 8 people. And then you have slightly larger ones, like the one that just came in from Jordan, that you wanted to get into that second space. So give us a perspective, both from the investment and what is so different about these entrepreneurs who are coming into flexible working spaces.
So thank you for the kind words. In my opinion, just to answer your questions as well, yes, I did. I am COVID positive the last few days, but my symptoms are not that bad, so I'm working from home. And just to go back on what you said, I think what's very important is that with the same topic today that's being discussed, which is Entrepreneurs 4.0, you see in today's world a different breed of entrepreneur and a different type of company coming in as well. So you see someone who has come from an incubation center, who's come from an acceleration center, and has an idea or has a proof of concept that he wants to take forward. But it is not typically what was the case 10, 20 years ago, where you need a large amount of capital to go and execute on that idea, or had to be the son of a business owner to go and launch a business. So today, I mean, when I interact with entrepreneurs and I interact with young companies and companies coming into Pakistan, such as like Rocket or Uber and other larger items, they at times need very quick, they expand very quickly and very agilely as well. So, I mean, I give you an example of a company upstairs in one of our sites. So today we have about 400 plus members, about 60 companies at Colabs. So across that, what we see is we see that 50% of them are freelancers or your what we call startups and in the smaller range. But you will see the startups start off with a team of 3, then grow to 10. And then from 10, they require an office of 30. And then they say, oh no, okay, we've become too big. We now require space for about 100 people or 150 people. So the point is that to enable that agility, they obviously require the back end, which we provide as well. But along with that, what you see in the new entrepreneur in today's world, and the new millennial as well, is that drive. He's not going to bog himself down, कि जी मैंने ये भी करना है, I have to do this, I have to do that. They actually get farther from it because they're trying to perfect the product. And also with access to capital being much easier in today's world with different VCs coming in and different investors coming to the market, and looking at the consumer demographics of Pakistan, it is much easier for them to actually showcase and grow through that item. I give you an example of a company that sits at Colabs, a small company called Emerald Labs, started by Kazan. Mahmood used to be at ID 92. So he started off a team of 4 like 6 months ago. And today he takes over 4 offices. He has a team of 45. And then when we speak to him, he says that, oh, I want to expand to a team of 80. So the point is the ability to scale one by one is very, very easy. And it's a very easy growth trajectory as well that you can achieve being in this ecosystem. Because I think in today's world, the tools to grow or the tools to scale are quite simple, because in terms of user adoption, what's coming in and how businesses are more agile. You can have asset light models, which does not require large amounts of capex or investment. The product is just an app or just an IP. So from that perspective, I think it gives it a long leeway as well.
Thanks, Omar. Khurram, coming back to you. So we've seen a lot of movement of capital, surprisingly during the COVID period also. So there were large investments coming in. But most of those investments have been coming into founders of a particular class. I mean, these are people who've gone to the best schools, to the best colleges, to the best universities. Some of them have worked abroad for different companies, then come back to Pakistan. They've set up their businesses. And they're the ones who are actually getting first look, right, from venture capitalists, whether they're Pakistan-based like yourselves, or they're being drawn in a venture capital from outside, which has some connection to people who are looking into this ecosystem. When we talk about entrepreneurship 4.0, I want to talk about the kid, that's coming out of Saluda University, or who's coming out of outlying, young University of Veterinary Sciences or something. But there's a lot of potential there, right? They do have the knowledge. They may not have the experience. But then if you look at the valley, right, so a lot of people were very young when they actually started their businesses. Look at Mark Zuckerberg, right? How old was he, right? He probably needed a babysitter at that stage when he launched his company. And he did find those babysitters in the venture capitalists that came in. Some of the stories about him are maybe legend, that he would go to a venture capital meeting in his pajamas because he didn't want the money, right? So how do you look at it? How do you think this filter down process will happen. Now, I've been looking into India because it's a parallel, listening to Ajit Agarwal, right, on the first day of the Thai Global Summit, and he was talking about Oyo, right, and he's the youngest billionaire in India. Uh, didn't come from a very heavy background, from what I could understand, but did find people, right, did find capital that was sympathetic to his viewpoint of the world. So, how do you see it?
That's a great question, Faisal. And I'm going to give you a very honest response, and I'll try to add my 2 cents in how that problem can be solved also. Uh, Look, as fiduciaries of funds, us or any other investor for that matter, we have a responsibility to invest that capital into the best deals and best opportunities that are out there, right? So it's a very classic case of supply and demand. We have very little supply of capital available in Pakistan. So that capital obviously chases the lower hanging fruit opportunities. Investors, for example, don't tend to go out of Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi, the big cities where the bigger universities are, the bigger companies are, and there are entrepreneurs with more exposure in these cities. So that's not to say that an entrepreneur out of Sargodha or Sadkabad is not an entrepreneur worth investing in. It's just a matter of prioritizing the little capital that is available in the country and trying to invest in the best deals and the best entrepreneurs that are out there. And for right or wrong reasons, a lot of people tend to assign weight to entrepreneurs who've had exposure to the rest of the world, have a worldview, have education from better universities, have bigger, larger networks. So that's sort of natural. Now, how do we solve that problem? We solve that problem by, one, in the private sector, trying to work on increasing supply of capital in the market. If there's more capital in the market, the capital will naturally flow to a larger pool of demand or deals that are out there in the market, and they'll eventually start going out of the bigger cities into the second tier and eventually third tier cities. How do you increase supply of capital in the private sector? And that's where I think government intervention plays a big role. And a lot of the economy, even Silicon Valley, US, Israel, India, government has played a critical role in creating incentives and mobilizing private capital or public capital, and targeting it towards entrepreneurs and Entrepreneur 4.0 or new businesses. Ignite, I thought, has done a wonderful job. HSE has done some part, but I think there are a lot that needs to be done to have a structured program along the lines of something like Yozma in Israel, for example, where the government said, invited private capital with experience of investing. The earlier I was talking about scouting the best entrepreneurs, and it's a skill, right? So they invited good fund managers to come into the country. They said, you invest $1, we'll invest $1 alongside with you. Let's invest $2 in the company. So you immediately get leverage on your capital. You double your investable capital right away. And they also created incentives. They said, if the deal goes bad, you lose half your capital. But if the deal goes well, you have a certain period of time. We'll give you the option to buy out the government share at a pre-agreed, very minuscule price, where essentially the government is getting their money back. It was a very successful program, had a very good result, and now we know, Israel to be one of the second or third densest entrepreneurial ecosystems in the world. They've done really well. So these incentives have to be created by the government, and I think that'll do wonders in attracting capital into Pakistan, and then once there's more supply of capital, it'll naturally grow out of bigger cities and onto more entrepreneurs. Third thing, lastly, I think there's also an effort that has to be made on the demand side also. There's almost a sense of entitlement I've sensed at times, where entrepreneurs, working in their home city, for example, almost feel entitled for investment. They say that we're here, we're going to work out of here, you come to us and you investment, and we'll build our company, out of here. Sometimes it might make sense, but a lot of the times it doesn't make sense. If you are in, sitting in Bhavanagar and you're a great entrepreneur, I think you should, seriously reconsider moving to a larger city with a larger pool of talent that you will require as you grow and scale your business, with a larger market, with a more supply of capital that's readily available. So as an entrepreneur also, I think it's your responsibility to get out of these, smaller cities, move towards, where the capital is or where the market is, where the talent pool is to increase the probability of raising capital. I don't think investors give a lot of attention to whether somebody has gone out or not, as long as, it's a passionate entrepreneur. And 47 Ventures has invested in Healthwire. Hamza and Nabil both are homegrown entrepreneurs. Hamza is a LUMS grad, has never been out of the country. Consoli Ads, it's very similar. I said local homegrown entrepreneurs. It's an ad mediation platform. Vendi is a local business. Shahi Savari was all LUMS grads, have been outside. Turbo Labs and Everplay are founded by entrepreneurs who've gone out and come back, and they're more seasoned. But we have not seen any difference in performance. We will look for good, hardworking entrepreneurs who know what they're doing, and whether or not they've had international exposure is not a big consideration.
Thanks. I agree with you. It's about the individual entrepreneur. It's about how much passion they have. It's about how deeply they've studied the market. It's about what problem they've really identified, how well they know that problem, and how they're providing a solution to that. I'm going to move on to Yasmin. I didn't want to just have her here for laughter. So Yasmin, how is you need to unmute your mic?
Yeah.
So how is San Francisco treating you? I know that you moved to San Francisco with the objective of conquering the world with laughter, right?
Yeah.
And you've been out. You've applied for funding, right? Even with the local funds, and you've gone out. You've done so much around the world. You've gone to all kinds of places. What is your expectation out of San Francisco now? Do you think that you're going to have more success in that market than you did while in Lahore? Yasmin has just moved about a week ago, right? So
Yeah,
it's
literally my eighth state of San Francisco. I've been here before, and I worked a little bit here before. I worked with Facebook, and I worked with a few other tech companies. Why I particularly moved, and during COVID, and I left my comfortable life behind. I had a large house in Lahore and a comfortable life, friend support system, and I left all of that and moved to San Francisco, one of the most expensive cities in the world. Not only because I could make more money, but also because I wanted to be more useful. And in Pakistan, yes, laughter therapy is accepted. Yes, people pay for it. And yes, I had business, but somehow I missed that adrenaline rush, where I could just be doing more and more work in the mental health space. And because people don't have a realization that their mental health is suffering, or there can be ways through which they can feel better. Like, people are totally okay with experiencing depression, anxiety, and stress in day-to-day life and do nothing about it. But I see people approach mental health issues in a very different way in the US, and particularly in San Francisco. Like, ever since I got here, the conversations that are happening around mental health are very, very deep and profound. Like, just today, I was discussing it with somebody who's designing educational programs, DLP programs for schools, and he's providing those programs. But I got in touch with him and I told him that, how about we co-pitch? And he was like, yes, let's just co-pitch to Bay Area schools. Let's just do a few laughter therapies for them. And if they like it, let's just make it a part of their curriculum across the Bay Area schools, and for rest of the COVID, and that would be fun. So I would really like doing multiple laughter therapy sessions per day, every single day, and be useful to a larger population in San Francisco, as opposed to sitting in Pakistan and just doing maybe 5 laughter therapies a month, where I can be doing 5 a day. So, and I know that I should be working on the tech version, like what can we do about it? And recently I'm working on the AR side of it, like we are trying to create an AR version of Laugh with Happy for DLP, where where kids can just click on the app and Yasmin Butt would be laughing in front of them, and they could just do it like 10 times a day, how much ever laughter that they need in their life. So that's why I wanted to move to San Francisco, to just grow the product, grow the service, and be around people who could really use it, like as opposed to designing Tesla somewhere where electric cars are not even used, right? So I just wanted to be in the right place for my product.
Wonderful. And pudding does not count as desi dessert.
Yeah, I thought it did.
All right. Okay, coming to you, Umar. You need to unmute your mic.
Yes.
So we've heard Khurram talk about the dearth of capital or not enough capital being available, or drawing in more capital so that there is more investment, there is more intervention in Entrepreneurs 4.0 beyond what we see right now. You also have a small venture fund, right? You're an angel investor. We've co-invested in a company.
It's not a venture fund. I just
Sorry,
invested as an angel.
An angel. Okay, an angel investment. And we've co-invested, right? We've invested in a company together. How do you see it from your background as an investor, right? In terms of the experience you had. I know that you've looked into companies in India at one stage. I think Big Basket was one of those companies, if I'm not wrong, right? So there were other companies. I think the health sector is one that you were actually really looking into, both in India as well as Pakistan. In fact, in South Asia and other parts of the world also, in most of the what we call the underdeveloped world or the frontier markets. So how do you see investment in 4.0? We've been discussing, right, what else we can do at Collabs, right, to kind of energize the whole ecosystem. So I would love to hear from you. I think all our participants would love to hear from you, because you were managing a very large or part of the management of a very large.
Just on 4.0, I think what's very important to see is that you need to look at emerging markets as an asset class, right? So when we look at emerging markets, you look at the 220 million people in Pakistan, the billion plus in India, and then the 191 million across the 19 countries in the Middle East, right? What's very important to see about the demographics here is that your median age here is between 26 to 27, 28, right? The consumer is starting to consume and is part of that journey where they, in these markets especially, they have that spending power now. When it comes to entrepreneurship 4.0 and what you talk about, you have to look at new industries. For example, let's take grocery delivery, right? So in all these markets, be it India, Vietnam, Pakistan, anywhere, people are buying grocery. What companies like Big Basket, or in Pakistan, a grocer app, and other smaller players are doing is they're just trying to automate that service that is already being done. So the idea there is that when you see adoption, the reason for the very high adoption and the very high growth, the month-to-month growth of 15-20% you can achieve in these markets is because typically what the process of going and buying food would be to go buying it from your like sabzi wala, going to the bazaar and doing it, right? With these countries having about 30 to 40% smartphone penetration, that food that is being bought can be bought on a WhatsApp message or a WhatsApp call, but then you're automating it through the app. And because people do not have the time and people are moving much faster as well as these markets evolve, you see higher adoption. So when you look at an example of a Big Basket, which today is, I think, a $3 billion company with investors from I remember when we were there in 2015, Alibaba had come into Big Basket. Big Basket was started by four founders who are on average age 40, 45 plus, and they are used to running grocery stores. They just went and put in the front end and managed to get that last mile and set up those logistics centers in different areas to be able to automate and become one of the biggest players in the market there. So the point is, it's back to the same theory that it is not, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just having a more efficient way of doing it, right? I run a shared office space, which is co-working. Uh, I was not the first person to start this. Neither was WeWork in 2005, which had the 60 billion valuation. Serviced offices started in 94 by Regus, right? So they've been going on for 30, 40 years. The point is not that, the point is that it is just seeing how you take a process and you just make it easier, right? That's why today, if you look at Zoom, Zoom today is valued higher than Oracle, SAP, HP, all these companies combined. They're just solving a problem. The problem they're solving is all of us. You're sitting in your house, Khurram is sitting in his house, Yasmin is sitting in San Francisco, and the Thai team is sitting in India. That this is the problem they've solved, right? They solve the problem of remote work. So coming back to the same point around people investing in these markets, it is these problems that you see in these markets that they're trying to solve. And that is what really brings on or brings in that sort of appetite. The second point you touched on, investors having appetite and having enough capital to invest, you see global asset classes diverging and investing into technology companies more because they are asset light and they do not require huge workforces, and their models are easily scalable. An app is scalable based on the number of users and the number of downloads it gets. And based on that, let's say it has 1,000 downloads, even if it can get up to 10,000 people paying a monthly subscription number, it can go up to 1 million and their capital costs will not go up, only the cost of the server will go up, right? So that is what you see as well in these markets coming up into that as well. And that's why as well, I mean, when you look at anyone coming into the market or wanting to invest, Pakistan, maybe you will see that in the last 5 years, people would first say that, okay, we need to invest our money into property or real estate. Now you see a lot of people who have excess cash wanting to invest as angels or invest into smaller companies because they feel that these companies are the ones that will stand up. Like today, you look at the companies that have raised capital in Pakistan, you look at Airlift and you look at all these other companies like Cheetah and X and Y and Z. These smaller startups in the market are all young entrepreneurs who are mid 20s, mid 30s, coming up with the same. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're still taking an idea that has come out of Silicon Valley or out of Europe, and they're just localizing it or trying to solve it for the local problem. And that is what really builds out sort of item in terms of the growth and the market research on that.
Thanks, Omar. You're absolutely right. To me, globalization has always been about localization. And I think one of the earlier examples was MTV. MTV was a global brand, but it localized everywhere, right? Because everybody had their own preference for music. And local content always takes precedence. So I've been part of the content industry for a very long time, and localization always works. Khurram, I'm going to come back to you. And if you unmute your mic. Right, so when we are talking about more capital and we're talking about government intervention, we have the examples of Israel and India. India, particularly the startup package, I think that was launched in 2016, made it necessary for state purchases, government ministries, departments, to include startups. 20% of all purchase has to be made through startups, through newer companies. Right? They may directly bid for a contract, or they may be subcontractors. So even contractors who would win a government contract required to cost 20% of that to a subcontractor that is a startup, and there is a definition of a startup. Then we have the example of crowdfunding, right? So we know that crowdfunding has been growing. It's a $300 billion industry from what I last recall. In Europe, and is growing faster in Asia Pacific. We know that recently the SECP, which is the regulator here for businesses, has created a sandbox for crowdfunding in terms of, I think it's real estate. So real estate sandbox is there. But then, how do venture capitalists look at that? When you're looking at these, let's say, new ways of funding for early stage businesses, and I'm going to come to you particularly as a venture capitalist, what is your perspective on SAFE, right? Simple agreements for future equity, rather than saying, give me equity today. A couple of investments have now been made in Pakistan that I'm aware of, where these are safe investments, right? These are not straight up equity investments day one. There is safe with cap, there is safe without cap. What is your own perspective on it?
Right. So I think there are multiple questions in that one. First one around government interventions and what SCP has been doing with sandboxes. Look, I think both SECP and State Bank of Pakistan, they have been fantastic. They've got some, luckily, I don't know if it's just maturing ecosystem necessitating it, or just pressure from everybody looking to sort of make the regulators think about these interventions, or just good leadership at these regulators. I think over the past few years, if you look at the pace at which they've responded to the industry, has been phenomenal. SCCP with sandboxes, they came up with these startup regulations, which by the way have lapsed, and I think there's an effort going on in order to get it ratified by the parliament. But the thing is that the policy board and SCCP management, they've been very responsive. State Bank has been very responsive with a lot of the concerns of investors bringing in capital, the ability to be able to take it out, making payments outside, inside, and things like that. So we are all moving in the right direction. This is how maturity comes into an ecosystem. It's not just snapping a finger and everything is perfect. Specifically for the sandboxes, from an investor standpoint, I think it enables the entrepreneurs to be able to experiment with a business model, but it doesn't give the investors the confidence to be able to trust the sandbox. And the reason is very simple. I would like to see in a sandbox a very clearly objective success criteria, right? Okay, here's a sandbox, you come in and join the program with your business model. And if you do A, B, C, D, E, F, we will definitely give you the license. We will definitely give you the permission in the country and grow and scale. But that is not there. It's like a completely nebulous criteria. It's very subjective. And it's sort of evolving. With all of these different, there are 2 or 3 different sandbox company operating in the sandbox now. So I think from an investor perspective, we would rather wait and see and let an entrepreneur work with the regulators through this sandbox and emerge with a license or a permission before we put the capital in. Otherwise, it becomes too much of a gamble. Have there been a very well-defined graduation criteria, entry criteria, as well as graduation criteria out of the sandbox? As investors, we would have been a lot more comfortable. So that's my comment on the sandbox. The second thing you asked was about SAFE and crowdfunding. Well, let me tackle crowdfunding. I think crowdfunding is a good thing. It's obviously works in mature ecosystems. I personally feel, I might be wrong, I personally feel that the stage at which our ecosystem is at the moment, we need slightly more mature investors to invest in startups and back entrepreneurs. If you get every Tom, Dick, and Harry investing capital in a startup at this stage, I fear that it might put a lot of pressure on young entrepreneurs that don't just need capital right now. They also need a lot of hand-holding and support. So I think it's important to have mature startup venture capital investors or angel investors who understand what it is to invest in a startup and the kind of risk that entails, and the kind of success rate it has, and the large failure rate that exists in this thing. and who are able to add value beyond the dollar check that they're writing for the startups to support startups at earlier stage. I think maybe it might make more sense at a more mature stage for crowdfunding to be more pervasive in the country, or for entrepreneurs to chase that capital, not very early stage. Even happens in more mature markets. I think our markets and our majority of the entrepreneurs, there are always exceptions, might not be ready for that. Third thing you asked about was a safe. I think it's just another instrument of investment. I personally don't like it because of the ecosystem, and entrepreneurs are not as mature as some of the other ecosystems. I think it's better to just sit down across from table, look at where the business is today and agree on some sort of evaluation on day one, as opposed to leaving it for some future uncertain date and time and investors. But obviously, if investors who really want to get into a deal and they can't agree on a price, they are using this instrument. I'm aware of investments that have been made, both in the form of safes and convertible notes. It makes sense. I think the regulations are catching up. State Bank is catching up. We had a lot of trouble getting health wire convertible note through the money to come through. But now that has happened. Following that, there's another company that raised convertible notes. So gradually, the investors the regulators are learning. They're coming to terms with these newer, fancier instruments. Even though they're simpler than a typical investment term sheet, just for the regulator, it's a new concept to grasp. But we're getting there. To me, there's about a safe, except that it's a different, yet another instrument to invest and defer the discussion of valuation down the road, and wait for the company to mature and more investors to come in and agree on a price and get a discount for that. I do, however, think that in a market like Pakistan, the discounts ought to be higher than what are typically being practiced with these safe convertible notes. But that's a commercial call that investors and entrepreneurs agree
on. Thanks, Gaurav. So, Umar, unmute your mic. You got 30 seconds for a sign off. And the question I have for you, are you a real estate developer or are you a tech company?
I'm a shared work. Actually, wait. So
he's entrepreneur 3.5.
I'm a shared workspace. I operate in the real estate sector, but I operate in the sharing economy sector. And the idea is that we are trying to transform typical traditional real estate, because we basically have the same sort of features, but we actually have people sharing them. So like an Uber car is shared by 10 people, our offices are shared by multiple people. So we are in that aspect.
All right. Thanks. Yasmin, make us laugh for 30 seconds before you sign off.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, so now we're going to pretend like we're meeting an old friend, right? But before that, we're going to do the practice laughter one more time. 1, 2, 3, go. Louder. Signing off now. 1, 2, 3, go.
Khurram and Umar, you're unmute.
Who's not unmuted? Oh, Khurram and Umar unmute, yes. Okay, so now our next exercise, while we sign off, you have to pretend that you're putting sanitizer everywhere. This is a COVID special exercise. You have to put sanitizer everywhere and laugh and do that in a very funny way. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, that is so
sanitized. I feel
so
sanitized.
much, Yasmin. Thank you, Khurram, and thank you, Umar, for being a wonderful panelist. I knew I couldn't get it wrong with the two of you. So it has been wonderful. It's all, as always, these conversations, I learn a hell of a lot from them. And I hope to continue these conversations on other forums also. Love both of you. Love you, Yasmin. Have fun in San Francisco. And do not step out without your mask. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, Faisal.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.